This is what everybody says about the Law of One. This is the number one feedback I get on all my Law of One videos, is people will say, it's like part of me somewhere already knew all of this, and I'm just remembering it for the first time. The Law of One basically is an explanation, a metaphysical explanation of the universe in which we live. And it has this amazing, unique ability to satisfy so many questions about, like, why are we here? What's all this about? Is there a purpose behind what we're seeing? These questions that should seem obvious that the average person doesn't even ask very much, but to people like you and I, we can't stop asking those questions.
I've been hungry for that question ever since I was a little boy.
Yeah.
I've always been like, why do adults treat each other so poorly? What else is there besides that?
Yeah.
Whatever that essence is, which is really a search for God. Yeah. I just didn't know it at the time.
Right.
So please, I digress. Like, I think all of us have felt that interstitial tension, and we wonder, what else is there? What's this all about?
So the best way to look at what we call consciousness, and I love this model the Law of One gives, is like a color wheel. So if you're on Paint or some editing program, Canva, you pull up the color wheel to choose your color, and the colors bleed into each other. There's no separation between the colors. They just sort of bleed into each other. So we have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. The Law of One says consciousness is actually like that, in that we are moving through the color wheel of consciousness. And of course, the 7 densities correlate to our 7 chakras and the 7 colors of the color wheel. It's kind of it's a universal archetype that's built in, right? So I like to say the simplest explanation of the densities of consciousness is you could think of them like the chakras of the universe, in that the universe has a 7-part progression in its return back to the creator, back to source, just like we do in our 7 energy centers. So if you know what energy centers are, this will be a pretty easy conversation to follow. If you aren't familiar with chakras, then we'll try to distill it for you a little bit. But each energy center, as most people know, represents like a different aspect of our being, right? Our expression, our personality, whatever. And so each density correlates to what that chakra represents, but instead of on a micro level, on the macro level. So for example, the first chakra we know is the root chakra, which is red. And the first density is the red density, which is the density of, they call it being or beingness. So this is when the physical universe just begins, right? You just have the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. And for billions of years, as far as we know, those 5 elements of the first density interact and mesh with each other and create planets and stars. And after so much interaction, consciousness begins to evolve from the first density into the second density, which correlates to the second chakra, the sacral. That's the orange ray energy center. And orange is the color of awareness. So the second density of consciousness was when, let's say, Earth has formed, an ocean has formed on the planet after billions of years.
It's just, I can't even really fathom that with my mind. It's great to hear you say that, but like, how could we even know what that is?
Yeah.
That amount of time.
Yeah. And Ra even says the time is vast in your estimation, but meaningless in total, because there's no time in the universe. There's no such thing as a long time for the universe, right? It's just a mental idea. So the second density is growth and movement. So anything that can interact and move with its environment would be considered a second density life form. So this is where consciousness gains the ability to be an individual self, even though it's not aware that it is yet. It can have an environment and it interacts, and everything from microbial life, which is where second density would start, through insects, plants, and animals, and even like pets would be like the latest stage of a second density creature. That's all second density. Now, when the mind does this thing where it kind of flips in on itself and becomes an object to itself, and it says, I exist, I am aware of what I am. That's the beginning of third density, the yellow ray solar plexus chakra. And that's when all 3 of the lower chakras are available, that's when the ego is created. The ego is our sense of being an individual, separate self that's separate from the universe and moving within it and fighting against it and struggling against it, but not one with it, right? That's third density consciousness. So that's the consciousness that humanity is currently in. This is what the Law of One teaches. But we're actually just now beginning to transition into the fourth density, which of course correlates to the heart chakra, the green ray. And that's the density of love and unity. So after consciousness spends a couple 100,000 years in third density with tribal warfare and competition and murder and genocide and all these horrible atrocities that happen in third density, like you don't see animals committing genocide with one another, right? There's this balance nature has built in. Well, after consciousness suffers from the belief in separation, which is third density, it forces consciousness to learn, is there a better way to be in the universe? Is there a better way to exist here?
Because of the pain.
Because of the pain.
So the pain is necessary.
It's an evolutionary driving force, absolutely.
From third to fourth density.
From third to fourth density. It's the vehicle, right, that moves consciousness forward because you can't stay there forever.
Because, dude, that's been this looming question for me is if we're going to evolve, does it always have to come from the vacuum and the contrast of pain and suffering? And in some way, whether it's Buddha or whether it's the Tao or whether it's Christianity or any kind of faith-based practicum, it always seems like there is this high-low pressure.
Yeah.
And I think it was Aristotle, nature hates a vacuum. And then Watts took that on and then made it really popular. That vacuum is actually the yin yang. It's the God experiencing God's self. Almost, so you could even say Satan, the fallen angel, right?
Yeah.
Like we need all these things to talk about. And even, that's why I warned y'all, like this is a very heart-based, very faith-based conversation. But if you're not careful, your mind can start going way out there and pull you away from the teachings that you're actually bringing to us. So in this fourth part, it's the physicality. This is also the paranormal, right? There can be like extraterrestrials in the fourth in the fourth density. So I think about the way that you and I experience each other. Like we can feel each other. We have the micro muscles in our face. You're looking at me to see if I'm safe. I'm looking at you to see if you're safe, and like that's how we figure each other out. What is the physical? What is the physicality of this fourth density? Why is that so important that we're in a physical body on this path to achieve oneness? Essentially, what's that all about?
Yeah. Well, the Law of One teaches essentially that the body is the learning device that consciousness is using. So like just that first three densities progression I just explained, you see how consciousness has to take to us a lot of time to experience existing and evolving, right? Imagine how complicated and complex and nuanced the human experience is compared to like a rock or, water, like infinitely more complex. Even from a pet, right? Late second density pet, the difference in the amount of nuances your dog grapples with every day and it's like 1,000-fold, right? So obviously you couldn't just first exist here as a human. Like how would consciousness even have the reference frame to be a human being?
Check out some of the videos on this screen that are perfectly curated based on the video you just saw. Make sure you follow me and I'll see you in the next video.